There was an obsession of ancient human beings to depict things that they saw, with carvings on caves, because that's what they saw.
Hidden deep in ancient caves are markings that shouldn't exist, figures too strange, too advanced, and too otherworldly to ignore. Were they left by early humans, or something else?
All kinds of different types of figures, different representations of God. We don't know if it's the same time or it could be different times.
These mysterious paintings are rewriting everything we thought we knew about our past.
There is a whole hidden underground world that we're only just now beginning to discover.
Kimberley art. Way up on the sandstone walls of the Kimberley region in Australia, there are these paintings that seem really out of place, like something from a different world.
They painted images on their caves, which eerily looks like the so-called greys of alien abduction lore today.
Locals call them Wanina, which are sky beings that showed up long before anyone wrote history. Their faces are kind of eerie, with no mouths or noses, just big white heads and dark eyes. Around them there are strange shapes that look like spirals and concentric rings floating next to tall figures that seem to be wearing suits. For ages, the elders have talked carefully about these beings, saying they came to share laws and knowledge, then disappeared into the clouds. But weirdly enough, the same designs, like three-fingered hands and horned figures with those same hollow eyes, show up in caves all over the world, from Algeria to Utah. How could totally separate tribes come up with the same idea?
The ones that were discovered in some of the African caves, it's too similar to what has been discovered on every continent for it to be complete coincidence. It's this whole idea of the spark of initial inspiration.
Archaeologists brush it off as just art from myths, but when you're standing under those ancient walls, it feels a lot less like a myth and more like a message, left by visitors we were never supposed to remember.
There was an obsession of ancient human beings to depict things that they saw, and I think they did it with carvings on caves because that's what they saw.
Guon rock paintings. Hidden away in the Kimberley wilderness, not too far from the spot where the Wanina spirits watch over ancient rocks, there's another mystery, one that's even older and a bit stranger. The Guon paintings, also known as the Bradshaw figures, are tucked away in weathered alcoves. These artworks are thought to be over 12,000 years old. Unlike the bold Wanina, these figures are more delicate and graceful, depicting slender beings with ceremonial headdresses, long tassels hanging from their arms, and holding tools and ornaments that don't quite align with any known history. There's some debate among researchers about who actually made them. Local legends say they were painted by spirit beings, not humans, using feathered brushes in the middle of the night. Some of the figures have elongated limbs and funky poses that don't seem to fit any specific culture. Just like the Wanina, you can find these figures in remote gorges, consistently showing those haunting details, almost as if whoever or whatever made them was following some ancient pattern we can't fully grasp, leaving behind clues of a presence we're still trying to understand. Indian rocks. In central India, deep within the rock shelters of Chhattisgarh, there's some ancient art that flips our understanding of history on its head. These paintings, over 10,000 years old, show figures that look pretty bizarre. Tall people without mouths or noses, holding what seem to be weapons, and hanging out next to strange discs with legs and funky antennae.
There is a whole hidden underground world of planet Earth that we're only just now beginning to discover.
What's really wild is how spot on these depictions are. Some figures look like they're decked out in suits that make you think of modern spacesuits, while others are chilling next to creatures that resemble kangaroos, which you won't find anywhere in India. The local archaeologists were so baffled that they reached out to NASA and the Indian Space Research Organization, hoping for some insights beyond just local legends, and they're still working on it. So whether these were memories, visions, or something else entirely, rock art is still here, quiet but impactful. and it keeps pushing us to rethink our own history.
The Times of India actually proposed the idea, what if what we have depicted here are some type of extraterrestrials, or at least some type of flying craft, because it's the basis for much of the Hindu pantheon of gods.
Sego Canyon petroglyphs. In the sandstone walls of Sego Canyon, Utah, there's a creepy collection of images that feel like they resonate through time. The most unsettling ones are the barrier-style petroglyphs. These tall, hollow-eyed figures that were carved between 2,000 and 6,000 years ago. Their weird, elongated shapes and mask-like faces don't really match anything from known tribes or rituals, leading some researchers to wonder if they're connected to extraterrestrials. On top of these ancient figures, you also find some younger Fremont designs that look like they were carved over them, almost as if there was an effort to erase something mysterious. Then there are the Ute panels featuring horses, which were added after Columbus showed up, helping to place this mystery in a somewhat familiar timeline. But if you venture just a bit beyond the main panels, you'll stumble upon some hidden ones. 5 strange andromorphs peek out from behind a corral, frozen like they're watching us, almost like they're stuck in time. Were they meant to guard something, a memory of encounters from way back, or just warnings left for us? The winds whip through the canyon, and those who look on can tell that whatever happened here was never meant to be fully understood, and maybe that's the point. Nazca Lines. The Nazca Lines cover a huge area of the Peruvian desert, and they're still super mysterious today. These huge designs etched into the ground over 2,000 years ago go on for miles. Up close, they just look like random ditches, but from above, you can see giant monkeys, hummingbirds, spiders, and weird shapes that don't look like anything on Earth. The wild part? The Nazca people had no way to see their own creations from the sky. So who were these colossal artworks for? Some people think the lines were used for rituals, like calling for rain or honoring gods. There are spiny oyster shells found nearby, brought in from the coast, which suggests that they were used for some kind of ceremonial gifts. Others think the lines could be mapping out constellations or acting as calendars for keeping track of astronomical events, maybe to connect with sky gods or even something more otherworldly. There's even a weird geoglyph that looks like a runway, sparking ideas that these might have been landing strips for ancient visitors. Whatever their purpose was, the scale, precision, and mystery of the Nazca Lines remain a message carved into the earth, meant for eyes far above. Before we uncover the next ancient mystery, tell us, are the Nazca Lines messages for beings from beyond? Type "not made for us" if you agree. Art of Tissoli. Just when you think you've seen it all in the world of ancient mysteries, the Sahara surprises you again. Deep in Algeria's Tissoli Niger Plateau, way off the beaten path, there's an incredible collection of artwork that dates back almost 9,000 years, older than most civilizations. But these aren't just simple depictions of hunters or herders. Some of the figures have big heads, flowing robes, and shapes that seem like they're wearing helmets and suits. Details that puzzle scholars to this day. Among the creepiest are the great Martian gods, giant figures with round, featureless faces and limbs that bend in odd ways. They're surrounded by patterns that look a lot like star maps or even flying vehicles in the ancient sands. Archaeologists call it ritual art, but some people speculate that it might be evidence that these ancient folks were recording something real they saw in the sky. Standing in front of those strange, alien-like shapes, the desert suddenly feels less empty and a whole lot more mysterious. What's more unsettling is that many of these depictions appear isolated in time. There's no cultural context to explain them, as if they came from nowhere then vanished. What you think of these, share your thoughts down below. Insecttoids, ETS. Long before all the modern UFO stories really took off, people were already talking about strange, mantis-like beings. These rumors have popped up across different cultures and time periods, from Egyptian hieroglyphs to Hopi legends about the ant people. Their presence always seems to hover between myth and reality. Nowadays, countless people who claim to have encountered them say these insect-like entities are silently hanging out aboard massive crafts, watching over us, guiding us, and sometimes even stepping in during our evolution.
That's still kind of a mystery. We don't know if they've got a home world. There are reports that they do have some bases here in our solar system, little planetoids or even on Mars, different locations.
Some believe that these beings might have secret bases on Mars, hidden in the poles, or even out in the universe where these matriarchal societies are just waiting and watching. And the more you dig into it, the more it seems like they're already aware of you. Stone Age art. Up in the Vic d'Essos Valley in southern France, you'll find the Neo Cave, which hides some seriously cool history behind its simple entrance. The cave stretches over 2 kilometers and has been known to locals for ages. There are even signatures on the walls dating back to the 1600s, though no one really understood how significant they were at the time. Back in the early 1800s, people went so far as to take out stalagmites to sell to collectors. It wasn't until 1906 that archaeologists figured out those mysterious marks were actually incredible Stone Age art from the Magdalenian period, around 14,000 years ago. If you hike 800 meters into the cave, you'll reach the famous Black Hall, which is considered one of the coolest prehistoric art spots. Inside there are herds of bison along with horses and ibex, all shaped by the natural curves of the rock. One bison, positioned almost 3/4, looks like it's keeping an eye on things, almost as if it's giving a nod to everyone who walks in. But who actually created these mesmerizing images, and for what reason? Some experts think they weren't just for decoration. They might have been part of rituals or visions, possibly shamanic journeys aimed at connecting with spirits or the animal world. The true purpose is still a mystery, but one thing's for sure. These ancient hands didn't just leave art behind. They left echoes of a long-lost way of seeing the world. Mayans Cave. Deep in the Yucatan jungle, some explorers stumbled into a cave that hadn't been touched for ages, and what they discovered has started some interesting discussions among archaeologists. On a 15-meter stretch of wall, they found overlapping handprints, along with weird figures, hunters, animals, insects, and shapes that look like ancient gods. The archaeologist team noticed that the colors and techniques used are different from classic Maya art, hinting that they might be from a time before the Maya. One figure that stands out is holding a shield and weapon, almost caught in the middle of a hunt. Close by, a blue sinkhole sparkles in the dim light, as if it's protecting these ancient images. Although officials aren't saying much, those paintings seem to tell stories that are just waiting to be uncovered. The Egyptian Mysteries. Inside the Temple of Seti I, which was discovered more than a century ago, you'll find one of Egypt's most puzzling mysteries. At first, the carvings look like the usual wall decorations, but if you take a closer look, some strange shapes stand out. Ones that resemble a modern-day helicopter, a tank, and even an airplane. These carvings weren't made just last century, but they were carved thousands of years ago.
If carefully looked at, one will see that there is an overlaying glyph on top. Glyphs were laid over what was originally there. It is in archaeology called a palimpsest.
So how does that fit with what we know about history? Mainstream scholars say it's just a case of overlapping hieroglyphs due to erosion, but a lot of people aren't convinced. The designs are too precise and familiar. Theories have gone wild online, ranging from alien visits to time travelers stuck in ancient Egypt. But the puzzle doesn't stop there. In the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, there's this really weird image that people have dubbed the Dendera light. It looks like a giant light bulb. Literally.
And it's really, really hot as well, but it's all worth it just to get to see these.
There's a figure seemingly holding a glass tube with a snake-like filament inside, connected to what looks like a power source. Egyptologists say it's just a lotus flower from some mythology, but come on, why does it look so much like a light bulb with all that wiring? Is it just a coincidence, or is there something deeper going on here?
Over the side we're looking at right now is just the single light bulb, and as you saw, this other side contains the double. Some theories say it relates to the creation myth, and possibly they are trying to create a new nectar or a new force of energy or nature or a god, a new deity.
And then there's Karnak, one of the biggest temple complexes ever built, dating back to 3200 BC. Here, massive obelisks soar with amazing precision, carved the same on all sides, and their smooth edges are so flawless they could compete with modern machinery.
The obelisk is carved with the same inscriptions on 4 sides, and they're all exactly the same, and they're beautifully cut and articulated hieroglyphs into this red granite stone.
The human hand, no matter how good you are, can never do that.
People have wondered, how did they manage to cut and inscribe these obelisks so perfectly without any power tools? The symmetry is hard to believe.
The technology which we see is clearly of a perfection which is beautiful and almost makes our heart cry whenever you come face to face with it.
Every temple and every carving brings up the same eerie question. Did the ancient Egyptians do all this on their own? Or did they get some sort of help from something we aren't meant to understand? Spiraly art. Sego Canyon is full of mysteries that time just won't solve. Among the ruins of the ancient Anasazi civilization, you'll notice one thing that keeps popping up: the spirals. You see these spirals carved into rocks and cliffs, and they definitely aren't just random designs. Some researchers think they track solstices or seasonal changes, but others say they might not even tie into time at all. So here's the thought. What if these spirals are more than just art? What if they're actually portals, like gateways to different realms, dimensions, or even other worlds?
Behind me here at Sego Canyon, we have about a dozen unusual spirals carved into the cliff. Archaeologists believe that they represent the sun, but some of these spirals are very unusual. One even has little spirals coming off of it. So you have to ask yourself, are these spirals in fact representations of some kind of portal, some door to another dimension?
The Anasazi disappeared mysteriously around 1130 AD, leaving their cities behind without a hint of a fight, a disease, or any solid explanation. While traditional archaeologists claim it was due to drought or migration, not everyone buys that.
There are some that believe that that may represent the portal by which the Anasazi and other southwestern cultures crossed from this world into their point of origin. I think there's a possibility, at least, that there is a connection between the alignments of certain celestial events and the opening and closings of these portals.
Some fringe theorists propose that the spirals hint at a deeper connection, maybe even with aliens. And those spirals, they could be signals for their return. Nobody really knows what went down, but those symbols are still there, carved in stone, daring us to solve the mystery. Oldest artwork. In the limestone caves of South Sulawesi, Indonesia, there's a painting that could change our understanding of ancient art as we know it. Discovered in 2021, it's now seen as the oldest known cave artwork in the world, dating back an incredible 45,500 years. The painting shows 3 Sulawesi warty pigs, which are native to the area's lush forests. But it's not just random art. Researchers think it might represent a mating ritual, suggesting that early humans weren't just painting animals, but actually trying to tell a story.
This is a painting of a pig from a cave in Sulawesi. We've dated it to 45,500 years ago, and we think that this is the oldest depiction of the animal world anywhere on the planet. You can see here the head of the pig, the tail, and the legs, and you can see these 2 images of human hands next to it. We think this is the earliest known artwork produced by humans, and it's a truly amazing discovery.
What's really fascinating is the method they used. The artists employed red ochre, ground into a powder and applied by hand, which shows that these early humans had artistic tools and a desire to express something meaningful.
They use a mineral pigment, a rock, essentially ochre, which they would pulverize. It's an ironstone hematite. They would pulverize the rock, produce a powder, which they would then mix with water and other substances, other liquids, in order to produce this quite vivid, bright red paint.
This isn't just about art. It gives us a peek into the minds of prehistoric people. Why did they choose to paint these pigs? And why in this spot? It's a quiet mystery hidden in the stone, but it speaks louder than words ever could. Otherworldly contact. Out in the dry landscapes of Arizona, there are some ancient carvings that have researchers scratching their heads and sparking wild theories. These aren't just random drawings. They might actually be messages from another world. One carving really catches your eye. It shows a creature with a huge triangular head and big almond-shaped eyes. To a lot of folks, it looks just like the classic gray aliens we hear about in today's UFO stories. But these carvings were made thousands of years ago. How could people back then have imagined something that looks so much like what we think we see now? Another carving features a tall humanoid figure with a rectangular body and weird wavy lines around it.
The Anunnaki wore cloaks that had those kind of curvy lines all right. And so here we have a clear symbolic connection with the Anunnaki on this figure.
Possibly representing energy or some kind of unseen force. Some theorists even connect these designs to the Anunnaki, the legendary sky gods said to have visited Earth ages ago. Skeptics brush it off as just storytelling, while believers see it as proof of early alien encounters. Whatever the real story is, those petroglyphs aren't going anywhere. The real meaning behind these carvings is still a mystery, and it might always be. Canyons of Utah. In the remote canyons of Utah, there's a stretch of desert that some folks say is the longest art gallery in the world. But it's not your typical art show. 9 Mile Canyon, which runs for over 40 miles, is packed with more than 10,000 ancient petroglyphs, carvings that intrigue people for more than just their archaeological value. One of the head-scratchers is the family panel. At first, the figures seem human, but when you take a closer look, they get pretty bizarre. It looks like they're wearing helmets with long bodies and things sticking out that some argue resemble antennas. They don't appear to be warriors or hunters. Instead, they give off an extraterrestrial vibe. And this isn't just a one-off thing. If you check out nearby Horseshoe and Sego Canyons, you'll find more of these tall, floating figures that look humanoid yet strangely otherworldly, silently observing from rocky walls. Old Native American stories talk about sky beings, creatures from above that came with warnings or wisdom before disasters. Whether these carvings are sacred messages or just creative expressions, they hint at a mysterious world that might have an otherworldly connection. The Mayan puzzle. Back in the 1950s, archaeologists stumbled upon an amazing find in the ancient city of Palenque, tomb with the stone coffin of Lord Pakal. But what really caught everyone's attention was the intricately carved lid.
You see his lower hand, he manipulates some controls. He's sitting on a kind of chair in a sort of capsule.
The carving shows Pakal in this wild position, leaning forward like he's riding a motorcycle. There's this thing that looks like an oxygen mask connected to his nose. His hands seem to be working some controls, and he looks like he's chilling in a capsule. This strange imagery has led to all sorts of theories that maybe Pakal wasn't just a king, but possibly an alien traveler flying some sort of advanced spaceship. It's one of those mysteries that really sparks the imagination. The ancient Maya codices, especially the Popol Vuh, are packed with amazing stories, but none are as intriguing as the one about Kukulkan, the flying serpent. This sacred text tells the tale of how humanity was created, thanks to 2 hero twins and the arrival of 13 gods. Kukulkan really takes center stage, though. Often shown as a serpent with a human head, this mysterious figure has left researchers scratching their heads for ages.
It's been a long process to translate Maya hieroglyphs, and we're not done. Experts estimate we've got maybe 80% of it translated, and there are still glyphs that elude us.
Some think these images might point to something more than just mythology, perhaps advanced technology, or even extraterrestrial visitors zooming in on some kind of flying craft. There you have it. Seeing all this, what do you think? Are these just random coincidences, cultural vibes, or is there something weirder going on? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you're interested in exploring ancient mysteries and uncovering hidden truths, go ahead and subscribe. It's a great way to satisfy your curiosity.